Hello, welcome everyone to the Global Summit I Am Possible, an event to inspire you to have the courage to be who you truly are, so we together can create a heart-centered revolution where everyone is possible. My name is Mar Guerrero. I'm the founder of Alma Chemi, and today I have the pleasure to have with us Daniel Mangena. He's going to be talking about the pointlessness of purpose. Daniel is an author. I'm so curious about this because I like, this is quite the opposite of the summit. So let's see, I'm very excited about this. And he's a motivational speaker, author, and yes, welcome, Daniel.
Thank you for having me. Really, really excited to be here.
Yes. And so let's start with your own journey, because this is a question I'm asking all the speakers. Like, how are you possible? What brought you to be who you are at the moment? And then, of course, we will be someone a little bit different tomorrow. But, but so far, how are you possible?
Well, I mean, for me, I believe that everything that happens has happened. You know, some people say everything happens for a reason. But I think that it's very easy for that to become an excuse to keep making disempowering choices. I don't want to call them mistakes because we do have the opportunity to learn from everything that happens to us, but we have to take the opportunity to learn, because if we don't take the opportunity to learn, then, you know, we don't get to reap the benefit of the experience. So I've had a long old life in the short life that I've had, made and lost 2 multi-million-pound fortunes by the age of 24. Lost everything and made it back a couple of times. And now I have the opportunity to take those experiences and not only learn from them myself, but also to create the opportunity for people to learn from the missteps and the disempowering choices that I made in my life, so that they can actually expand and have better lives themselves. So, you know, I'm born and raised in England, in London, in the UK, and now live in Cabo, Mexico, with my wife and my kids. Generally speaking, my life now is what I want it to be, which is I write books, I do podcasts, and I do speaking, and generally just kind of empower people to live badass lives. And that's what I love to do and what I get to do.
Perfect. Jay, sounds amazing. And why are you called the Dreamer CEO? Like, what do you mean by that? There's another one that I will like, CEO, let's see.
I would have. So my company is actually called Dreamer HQ. And my catchphrase is dream with your eyes open. And the phrase dream with your eyes open kind of speaks to this very thing that I was talking about when I said, you know, unless you learn from it, then there was nothing there. It's the same, like one of my quotes that was featured in the Forbes article that I was in just last week was, you know, you can sit in a car and dream as much as you want about the car moving. You can feel really good about the car moving, but that's not going to make the car go anywhere. You have to follow through with that dream, follow through with that good feeling into some action. So when I say dream with your eyes open, I say, yeah, dream big, you know, have these grand ideas, but do something with them. So dreaming is a big part of what I believe. Everything starts with the thought, and the most beautiful thoughts are dreams. But for them to become a part of our life, we have to do something about it. And so that's where the dream piece comes in.
Okay. Yeah. And that's very interesting, because it's very connected with the idea of the summit. Like, I am possible. So how can we dream the impossible?
Exactly.
But then to bring it here, and then one step at a time, but go towards it, not just like stay in the dream. So I love it.
Which is what happens sometimes, you know, and I see this all the time, which is where this topic of the pointlessness of purpose really comes in, because, you know, even when I look at my own life, I've had opportunities that I've not capitalized on. I've had opportunities that I tried with and didn't go anywhere. But unless we actually do something to embody that dream, to embody that possibility, then it's just going to remain a dream, remain an impossibility, remain a thought, remain an idea. There are many people in states of impoverishness and other states, and they had great ideas, they had great opportunities, but it doesn't really matter because nothing was done with it. And so yeah, having your eyes open is an imperative part, I feel.
Mhm. And could you talk about a little bit more about that pointlessness? Like why? Because life purpose is quite important for me. So I like, let's see, because I'm an astrologer, right? And one of the things that for me astrology is so insightful is that it just kind of like tell you what you already know, but it empowers the people if it's done properly, right? There is also a lot of disempowering astrology that is just like, this is going to happen to you tomorrow no matter what. So it's quite the opposite. It's like we are co-creating with the cosmos. So the more aware that you are of who you are, then the more you can be part of that co-creation. But still, I would love to know your idea about what do you mean by that?
So there's a little bit of deception there because the sentence is a little bit incomplete. It's the pointlessness of purpose that we do nothing with. You know, so many people, I remember one of the funniest things I've seen happen. One of my friends, she was obsessed with Simon Sinek. And she was like, you've got to read this book, you know, start with why, or you've got to read this book, blah, blah, blah. But she was always trying to give me the latest fad. Every week she's got a new guru. And what was so funny is that, you know, he wrote this book, Start With Why, and then he had to write another book, Find Your Why. And you have all of these people running around, not doing anything with their life now because they're trying to find their purpose. Oh, I'm working on my purpose. Whereas to say that there is only one purpose is to say there's only one way that we can live our lives, when in fact, it's been scientifically demonstrated we live in a universe of infinite possibilities. So I don't believe personally that we can constrict infinite possibility. One of my favorite sayings is, favorite quotes is, the only thing that God cannot do is be less than itself, because then it's no longer God. So when we're saying that we're going to collapse the infinite possibilities of what could happen in our lives and say that everything comes down to this one singular thing that we have to do, so many people then end up not enjoying the fullness of a life experience, obsessed with this one thing, maybe finding it and being so burnt out and tired by that, they can't even do anything with it. Whereas my thing is that purpose can be renewed every moment. Always to step into the possibility of accessing the opportunity to co-create with God, to co-create with the universe, something wonderful. We're always available to be an avenue of divine love and expression and expansion and positivity into the world. But how can we be open to that if we're obsessed with this one thing that we're supposed to be here to do? Now, I feel that we all have something encoded with us that we're more aligned with. I feel that we all come with something that we are more easily attuned to. Some people will have an aptitude for something, but I think that we're missing out in some instances to a wider, more beautiful experience of life if we're just tying it down to this one thing, this one magical thing that we're here to do.
Yeah, and it's also focusing so much in the doing, right? So instead of being, like for me, when I think about life purpose, each day is much more about embody who you are. And in that being who you are, that is your purpose. Is that's it. It's like it's not
The
so
purpose
much
of life is
something
to
we
live.
attain. Yes. Yes.
I mean, what I do is I ask myself two questions, two very, very simple questions. And I ask them at regular intervals. And this is my clients. I invite them to ask this question too. And even in my book, The Dreamer's Manifesto, which talks about this idea of the dream versus purpose, what feels good and does no harm? What feels good to me right now? What passion, what desire, what voice of God is speaking to me in this moment that does no harm to others? And if I follow that, then the likelihood is I'm going to have a, you know, pretty cool life. And the likelihood is that if there is a purpose, I'm going to find it. And the likelihood is that if there is a purpose, I'm going to find it and I'm going to enjoy my life experiencing that. But rather than being in this stuck state, and this doesn't happen with everyone, you know, some people come up on something and they fall into it and that's what it is. But if I just keep asking myself that question, how can I be more love today? How can I be more expansion? How can I be more of myself in an expansive way that adds to the world and does no harm to others? If I keep doing that, I don't really see how you can go wrong with how you can go wrong in life. And you're probably going to have more fun and more of a joyful experience than finding this one purpose that's going to make it all better.
I love that. And then, what is the role of crisis for you in that sense? Like in this collective crisis that we are experiencing, and also like in personal crisis that people experience in their own lives. Because it's like you're emphasizing that enjoyment. Sometimes we are just in the middle of a crisis, and sometimes it's just hard to enjoy that, right? So what are your insights regarding that?
Again, this is one of the points that was brought up in the article in Forbes magazine that featured me the other day. You know, 2020 was an interesting year, but the law of relativity says that nothing is anything other than what it is until we compare it to something else. And so, you know, one person will say this was the best year ever because they're comparing it to other years. Some will say it's the worst year ever, and some will say 2020 was a year. My thing is this: I think the most powerful position that you can be in is resourced, that no matter what happens around you, you have the power to make choices that add to your own life. Now, some people in the face of pandemics lost their businesses. Some people increased their businesses. But I can guarantee you that everybody that was adaptable, everybody that looked for the opportunity more from the problem, at least had the possibility of stepping into something expansive. That doesn't mean that some people weren't inexplicably hit with terror. People have lost loved ones, people have lost their homes, people have lost their jobs. But being resourced to be adaptable in the face of adversity is where the strength is. I've found in my own experience, and this isn't, I'm not making a decree about what happened with everyone, but my own first-hand experience of what I've seen with people that have been the most challenged, they don't have sovereignty over their own life. They're waiting for someone else to save them, looking for, you know, the government to save them, or their religious leader, or their mum, or their dad, or someone to blame. There can be no sovereignty and blame in the same frame. So when people are fighting the system, fighting oppression outside, versus embodying sovereignty within themselves and making choices from that position, I feel, and science has demonstrated this to some extent too, that the capacity that we have to create a life, regardless of external circumstances, shifts completely. Does that mean that some people don't have hardships? Does this mean that some people have things that they don't have the capacity to get through right now? No, it doesn't. That is the case. But then our personal work is asking ourselves, how can I resource myself so that in the face of adversity, I do have the tools, I do have the skills, I do have the ability to pivot and to create something, even if it's just to tread water while others are drowning.
How would you advise people who are that feeling in that, right? Like in that external crisis, that they have given the power to all of these and try to wait for that to save them. And now they are realizing that that is not going to happen. So what would you, like it's not going to happen.
I'm glad you said the people that want to do something, because, you know, there's people who want to work with me in my my coaching or my programs, and I don't let them because they don't want to work. They want someone else to blame. So, for example, right now, it's pretty much impossible to one-on-one coach with me unless you've been through one of my group programs, because I'm very, 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 very discerning in who I work with. Because especially, you know, in the early days of my career, I got to meet people who they were given all of the resources. They were even making progress within themselves. And then when they hit those brick walls, instead of them looking inwards and saying, okay, you know, let's keep going. Oh, you this, you that. And all that was happening is with the obsession with staying where they were was more powerful than the leverage to actually move forward. And what I found is that when people do want to move forward, the fire that burns within them to move forward will get them through any adversity. When somebody really, really wants to move forward, then regardless of how things look, they're going to dig in and do what's necessary to move forward. There are some people who could have lost their house this year, but they didn't. Whether they had to go and do a second mortgage or get a second job or have to do a sale and lease back, they went and found a solution. I would say for those people who are in a position where they do have that within them, they do want to do it, but they don't know where. First and foremost, you need to know what you want your life to look like instead. If you're just running away from pain, the likelihood is you're going to run into the darkness of a forest of problems anyway. So it's knowing where you want to go next. If you're in the midst of crisis, you're in the midst of things that you really don't want to experience, the first step is, what do I want to experience? Because if you're making choices from the place of I don't want, they're very likely not going to be expansive choices. So the very first thing is, what do I actually, what do I actually want? When I know what I actually want, then I can see how far away I am between where I am and what I want. I can see what's missing. I can get the right help and support. I can get the right mentorship and guidance. I can surround myself with the right people, and I can start to access the right resources. But I can't do any of that unless I know what it is I actually want. So the very, very first thing, and probably the thing that's going to take the most time for most people, without which makes, nothing's probably going to happen, is, what do I want instead? What do I want now? And if they can answer that question, then they're probably going to start finding that their viewpoint is going to change. The way that they view the world around them is going to change. The type of people that they're going to seek counsel from is going to change. The type of mentorship, guidance, and support that they're going to seek out is going to change. The people that they're going to be speaking with, the conversations they're going to be having are going to change, because all of that has to be aligned and on the same page for any shifts to happen. But it starts with, what do I really want for myself?
But that could be also understood as purpose, right? Like,
it could be, but I always say the way to ask yourself is, what feels good and does no harm.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't know what you want for your whole life, you can close your eyes, dig in, and ask yourself, what feels good right now? I may not know my entire vision, but I can tune in and see what feels good right now and does no harm, and I can at least start moving towards that. And as I start that movement, then things start to open. There's a concept that I teach called micro-shifting. Micro-shifting is really an evolution of the idea of a baby step, which is just a consistent step, a series of baby steps going where I want. So if I don't know the full picture, I can at least start micro-shifting, baby stepping towards that unknown by saying what, because if I follow my joy, if I follow what feels good, then good follows good. The end destination on me following good is highly unlikely going to be bad. So we could call it purpose. And if that's what you want to call it that. It could be my vision. It could be my true meaning. It could be my dharma. It could be any of these things. The words don't matter so much as the movement. Am I moving towards this positive thing, or am I stuck and stagnant, or even moving backwards from fear?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then it's like how when we try to control life, right? That I think that is something that we have seen a lot in 2020, right? Like even institutions, no, trying to put more control into our lives, and then like, you should do this. Like at the moment, we are more controlled than ever globally. We like it or not. We can agree with that or we can disagree, but we are basically being very, and I see it in many other parts as well. So what are your ideas about this control from both globally, the society and the institutions, but also the control that we try to have in our lives as well?
I think control is something that we do from a place of fear, right?
Yeah.
People, I mean, I've got friends on both sides of the control argument, right? I've got friends that are obsessed with wearing masks, friends that are, I'm not going to wear my mask, they're not going to tell me what to do, and everybody thinks that they're a scientist. And the funny thing is, there's no evidence that definitively supports either side.
Yes.
So my stance really is, I leave people to do what they want, and I respect the rules of the law, so as long as it doesn't harm others. So face masks, for example, I have to wear them in the supermarket. I have to wear them if I'm in a Uber and stuff like that. So I do. It's not harming me to wear a mask for a few minutes. And I'd rather just do that than have all the fluff. Are they controlling me? No, because I've made the choice, personally, I've made the choice that I would rather just go about my life and not waste energy arguing something that's not going to change. all of these people that are in jurisdictions where they have to wear masks, for example, and they're refusing to wear it and kicking up a stink, they're not going to change the law. All they're doing is wasting their energy. Right? It's a complete and utter waste of energy. You know, so when we're trying to control ourselves and trying to control circumstances, again, it's from a place of fear. And I've got to control. When I'm certain of my outcome, when I'm certain of the quality of my experiences as a whole, because I'm certain of what I've created deliberately, I don't frantically try and control things. For me, control is something that happens after something that we don't want has started. So I actually just create deliberately in the first place. Control happens, oh, I've started to go left, oh, I need to go right, I need to control the car. Versus if I just deliberately decide to go right and actually take the actions to go right, I don't need to control everything because everything's going in the direction that I want it to go in. So being deliberate in the first hand rather than needing to change everything afterwards, and then having faith and trust in myself and in the resources that I have, the resources and support that I call in, seen and unseen, to support me getting to where I've deliberately said I'm going to go, then I don't need to control. But, you know, when it comes to being controlled, yeah, we've got globalization. You could live anywhere. So, you know, my family, my wife's Russian American. We were meant to be immigrating full time to the States. When all the stuff kicked off this year, I said, no, we're not doing that. We stayed in Mexico. Simple. So it was like, you know, my family, a lot of my family is still in London, and they're under terrible, you know, tier 4 stuff down at the moment. And Christmas was ruined for people. And, you know, my mum was crying, all the things. Make the choice, you know, live in a country that's aligned with what you want, live in a place that's aligned with what you want. And if you don't have the resources to do that, then that's your first step. Get resourced so that you can do that. People ask me, why do I spend so much time teaching people how to manifest money? Well, because money is a great resource. It allows you to do things that you want to do. So being resourced, being deliberate, and then trusting and having faith in yourself and in your support system, your support team, so that you're going to get to where you want. Then you don't need to think about controlling.
I love what you said about the trust, right? Because that is the opposite of the control, right? It's like, if you just trust, you're like, well, I try to do my best, but they are variables that we don't even know, right? And when we control, we are also stopping the magic that it can happen.
Definitely.
So regarding the manifesting money, because that is going to be very important for so many people, right? That objectively, right, they are losing their jobs, or like the whole economy is changing. Like, I think there are so many jobs that won't exist in a few years. And there are also so many jobs that they don't exist yet, and we have to create them also. So what is, like, how do you help people, and what would you advise for the ones that are in the moment of, I just lost my job, and how do I manifest those resources?
I mean, if we go back to the early 1900s, machines started, you know, the early of the Industrial Revolution. Things that people were doing by hand now are starting to get taken over by machines. Then you had robotics come. Taxi drivers lost out to Uber. I think what we're really seeing with this is some flexibility. If you think about it, they've actually pumped trillions of dollars into the world economy. Not millions, not billions, trillions of dollars have been pumped into the economy. There's actually more money circulating in the world today than there was this time last year. Think about that. I just want you to think about that. They've pumped trillions and trillions into the economy. But money doesn't disappear.
Like, it's, how? What? Where's the money?
Exactly. The money is in the hands of those that understand the way that money works and the flow of money. And so what's happening is, as this money flows, people that understand that money is just an energy that exchanges. What we call paper money or credit cards is a physical representation of an exchange that happens at an energetic level. Just as like you and I are comprised of energy that vibrates an experience that we can witness, a level that we can witness, is the same thing. So when we understand that money element, the energetic element, and how the physical counterparts to that allow us to move that energy from one place to the other, then rather than me sitting around waiting for a paycheck, which is never a sensible thing to do because I've just given my power away, right? Then I can actually say to myself, what can I do into this flow of money? Because money is there and it is flowing, but it's not flowing everywhere at all times. It's always flowing where it's called to flow. Like I said, in the early 90s, we had the, sorry, I didn't say, let me say, in the early 90s, we had the tech boom, right? And billions and billions and billions and billions were made. Now, some people sat on it and they didn't continue to follow the flow of the money. And then when the bubble burst, they lost their money because they didn't take that money and convert it into another form. Money left stagnant rarely does well. The analogy I've heard of is you don't go to a pond where there's no inlet to fish because the fish there aren't going to be any good. You go to the river where the water's flowing and it's fresh and you've got fresh fish coming there. So it's the same with money. If I'm just sitting here stagnantly, oh, you know, I've got my pension fund, I've got my job, I've got my 401k, I bought my shares in Google. No, the share price has gone up. That means that it's time to move with the cycle of money and to take the flow of that and move it somewhere else. Now we're having this rise of Bitcoin, right, and other cryptocurrencies, and the banks are understanding that they can't fight it anymore. That's it. Now they're jumping on the bandwagon. Bitcoin has gone up. I think I've made, I don't know, I've been in quite early. I've been in Bitcoin since 2014. But you know, that's going to come to an end too, because nothing lasts forever. There's an impermanence that exists in our reality because everything moves through cycles. And instead of people just honoring the cycles that they go through, they try and fight it or they try and hold on, rather than just allowing the cycle to continue and looking at where the rebirth is going to be from. It's the same with everything follows nature. It's the same thing. Jobs have the same thing. We all have this thing of we have a spring, we have a summer, we have an autumn, and we have a winter. There's nothing wrong with any of these seasons. They all serve a purpose. So when I understand, number one, there's more money now than there has ever been. It's just about understanding where it flows. Number two, economies are, it's the same way the industrial revolution came and went. We're now in where everything is moving online. We're seeing how effortlessly things moved online. People are working from home, people losing their jobs because they're not needed anymore. A lot of bricks and mortar buildings are losing tenants because they're not needed anymore. But there are going to be people that do need that space. And just like autumn pulls the leaves from the trees and makes space for the new blossoms to come in the spring, that's exactly what's happening here. So rather than being in fear, being in, oh my God, everything's going wrong and all this stuff, instead just honor that this is just the cycles and the seasons. And if I understand how to relate differently to money, I can follow those cycles and seasons and actually prosper regardless of what's going on.
And then how do you connect with those cycles? Like, how will you say, and now where is the money? Now, I'm sure that everyone now is thinking that, where is it? How can I connect with that?
I mean, I wrote a book, and in the Bernie game, what I actually do is I talk about alignment to the energy of money, the mindset of money, and also the physical experience of money. Because money is not just an energy, it's a thought form, and it's also a physical thing that's represented by different things. You know, we've spoken about cryptocurrency, you've got precious metals, you've got dollars, euros, pounds, all of these things. So we need to have a connective tissue between an idea of what we want in relation to money and what we're doing in order to connect with it, how we're vibrating with it, what's our frequency, which we experience as our emotional state, and what are our thoughts about money. Once we line those things up, then rather than asking where is the money, we can actually just call it to us. So rather than chasing the flow, we can be present and allow the flow to magnetically come to us, because that's how reality works anyway. Reality works on the basis of energy collapsing around us and taking form and shape according to what our thoughts and feelings are. So if I create thoughts and feelings around my needs being met, around abundance, around stability, around relief, peace of mind, freedom, around the reality that's going to collapse around me is going to be one that reflects those things, and the flow of money will be present in that because it's the easiest medium to do so.
And what will you say, because I'm sure it is in the mind of some of the people that are listening, and it's in mine as well, like for people who don't have the same upbringing, like even like in countries that are underdeveloped, or so then it's a quite difficult experience, because it's like the energy that they are since they are little is different in relation to money, right? And then how
definitely,
like it's a completely different story, right? Like being born in London,
100%.
I was born in Spain, that if you do work and if you are you, like there are chances and opportunities and all of this, right? If you are born in IT or some countries in Africa, or is a completely different story. So what are your thoughts about that? Like for those people, I'm sure they won't be listening, right, that much, because that's the pity. Those people don't have the access to everything. But for the ones who are listening, who want to make a difference in that regards, right?
My very unpopular view on this is very unpopular because it doesn't allow people to sort of blame anyone, is that the rules of the universe didn't change based on because we were born somewhere else. They didn't change. The laws of the universe don't necessarily respect whether someone was born in one place or another. I can guarantee you that a great number of people who are born in supposedly developed countries have a low quality of life internally, right? You see, when we start to look at like the universe, well, a lot of these developing countries have real wealth, but rather than actually claiming their own real wealth and doing something with it, let's talk about Africa. A lot of natural resources come from there, and yet they're some of the poorest countries in the world. Why? Because they allow the resources to be taken somewhere else. So we can sit and say, oh, I was born here, it wasn't available to me, I couldn't do this, I could do that. If they're listening to this, that means that they have an opportunity to do something different and to create something deliberately different for themselves. Does that mean it's going to be easy? No. I wasn't born to a rich family. My parents were immigrants. They did their best they could. And we as their children have gone on to take it to the next level. And we're now seeking to create a better life for our children to come also. My son is very fortunate that, provided he's probably not going to have to worry for anything himself. But there are other challenges that come aside from that, because money isn't everything. It's just a tool that allows us to access more choice. So he's going to have to be looking at his mental and emotional well-being, for example. Someone that was born in a third world country that has absolutely nothing still has the power of choice. Again, that doesn't mean that the choices are going to be easy, but they are still available. The world is much smaller than ever because of technology. Someone on a farm in the backwaters of India can make $1 million on the internet if they wanted to. All they need is a phone, and phones are everywhere. I spent a lot of time in West Africa, did some consulting work out there for my last business. And people have got nothing, but they've got a cell phone. They've got a cell phone and they can send pictures to each other and stuff. You've got enough to do something with that. Ideas. Billions and billions and billions are made every, I want to say day, but every year from ideas, simple ideas. It doesn't matter where you're born for you to be able to have an idea. So does it make it easier in some places? Yes, but it doesn't make it impossible. And it comes down to, are you one of those people that blames? Are you one of those people that's looking for someone to save them? Or are you one of those people that wants it enough to do what's necessary for you to take advantage of the opportunities that we all have, albeit some of us easier than others?
Yeah, I think sometimes the problem is even that connecting with the possibility. Because, for instance, for me, living in Thailand, what I see is that there is a certain part of the society that they don't even know that something is possible, because you are in a culture that is telling you this is how things are. And that's it. So then it's like it takes courage. And this is also why, like for me, the idea with the summit is that it takes courage to get out of that they told us this is the only potential for you, and then see that there are more options. But I see it like for some people it's just like, that's it. So it's, I don't know, yeah.
I'm with you, but you know what it is? People like yourself, me too, I write books, I'm doing podcasts, I'm doing free content online every single day. Pay me to change your life, you can use my free content. There are, I want to say, millions of us out in doing our part to bring a light to those who don't have it. And I think that, you know, if you want to talk about purpose, right, for some of us, that calling to go out there and be the light to those who don't have is a worthy endeavor that we are, I think we are obligated from a space of just decent humanity to take the light of what we have and to share it with others. So everybody that's listening to your summit, if there's even the slightest part of this, any of these interviews that you're doing that resonates with them, they should share it. And not just repost it, actually actively invite people to come and listen to this and get a different experience. Actively listen to this and have the opportunity to see what could be possible for them, you know, what's going to change. Not crying and complaining about who's going to be the American president or whether or not you should be doing this or that. What can I do? I've just listened to this information. Maybe they don't agree with all of it, but there's something they agree with. Share that with someone. If everybody that listens to this shares it with one or two people, and I mean actually shares it with them, hey, I heard this interview, you know, I think you should give it a listen, check it out, and they do the same. Do you know how tens of thousands eventually can be touched by that paying it forward?
Yeah, and that's the purpose, right? Like going back to the pointless, just like the intention, no? The intention for the summit is exactly that, right? It's like for me to contribute and then like connect with people who are doing the same, just as a way of inspiring what is already inside. It's not really, everything is already inside of the people, right? Exactly. And for me, in that sense, what is very interesting as well, and this is why I chose to do it bilingual, and in your experience, you also have like living in London and then Mexico, right? This, when we move to a different country and a different culture, there is a whole new mindset that opens up our possibilities. Because like things that in our culture are not possible, then suddenly we just see the potential there. And that is something that I also invite everyone, like learn new languages, go to different countries, because it opens up what we don't even know is possible.
You don't know.
Yeah. So for you, how has been that experience of like living in different countries?
I mean, I traveled around the world for about 2 years looking for where I wanted to be. I was actually considering Thailand, Asia. I loved my time in Asia. I was there a few years ago, but a lot of my speaking opportunities and so on were coming from the US. So it didn't really make sense going that far. Every week I'd be coming back to America to do a speaking engagement. This is not really going to work. So I ended up here in Cabo in Mexico. I love it. It's magic for me. The culture is different. I don't get to practice as much Spanish as I want because everyone's trying to practice their English, but you know, I get to speak Spanish a lot. My wife's Russian American, so you know, I'm not going to be the only person in my house that doesn't speak Russian. So I practice my Russian on a daily basis as well. And then my family's from Southern Africa, so you know, we speak a dialect of Zulu called Ndebele, so you know, I speak that too. So for me, literal parts of the brain, neural pathways in the brain build and expand, and the synapses fire that makes our brain actually operate differently when we're stepping out and learning something new and doing so on a consistent basis. So I think it just overall contributes to us being a more expansive person and having more possibility, like you said.
Yes. Yeah. And it's even like sometimes for me that is fascinating, the languages and how we even express differently. Like my voice change if it's in English or Spanish or in Thai. I'm not super fluent in Thai, but I know enough to be able to communicate. And it's suddenly amazing. It's like my voice is completely different in Thai because Thai is like very sweet, and then it's like Savadikha, and then it's very like that. So you explore a part of you that you weren't even aware it exists. So it's such a powerful experience as well. And I think in this sense of like also global issues, it can really solve many things, right? Like we see we are one humanity beyond borders and beyond everything.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So anything else that you would like to share? So for people who want to work more with you and
I would say, you know, we've spoken about the abundance stuff. Definitely in terms of how my viewpoint about purpose fits into creating your reality. Definitely my book, The Dreamer's Manifesto, which I can get on my website, dreamingdan.com. But I'd actually like to give everyone a free gift, which is, I just actually reshot this video. It's all about how to be a harmonious money magnet, regardless of what's going on around. Get that dreamwithdan.com/HMM. We'll make sure we get you a link to share with people. But it's a free resource that shows you how you can actually start getting into flow. The most important thing. But as a resource, it's unrivaled in terms of opening up more possibilities for us. You know, a lot of the things that we would like to do and experience do require money. It's not going to buy a relationship, but it's certainly going to put you in a space where you're not so stressed that you can't enjoy the relationship that you have in your life. Definitely, because it doesn't matter where you are in the world, the rules of the universe are the same, and this will guide you through some steps to doing that. Definitely check that out, dreamwithdan.com/HMM, how to be a harmonious money magnet. I think that'll be really powerful for your listeners.
Okay, perfect, perfect. And any final thoughts that you would like to share before we finish?
Just to take it a day at a time, and to accept the gift that comes with the responsibility of being able to actually choose what happens in your life. Sure, sometimes it's going to be challenging. Sometimes it's going to seem like the odds are against you and all that good stuff. But just consider the maybe of there being a gift there, and just take it a day at a time.
Yes. It's so funny that because it's one quote that it keeps coming to me for the summit is a poet in Spanish that it says like a walker or wanderer. It's hard to translate. It sounds better in Spanish, but it's like wandering. Of course, like all the poems, right? But it's like,
of course.
and it's very similar to your idea of like the pointlessness of purpose in a way. Like it says, walker, there is no path. The path is made by walking.
Ah, that's beautiful.
So, and then like it's a whole, that is just like 2 verses, but it's a whole poem that is about, like the path is not there. It doesn't, it's made by you walking. And it's exactly of what you're saying, what one day at a time, and then you see the magic unfold.
Definitely.
So thank you so much for your time, for everything. And thank you everyone for being possible, for listening to us. And as Dan said, please share. And if anything resonates, that's the way that we can change things also globally, right? So thank you so much.